Hi, and welcome to another live Q&A with me, Jonny Ross from Fleek Marketing. Welcome. If you're watching this on replay, just put hashtag replay in the comments. Here we've got Phil Fraser with us today. How are you, Phil? You okay?
I'm good. Good morning, Jonny. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm all right. Thank you. We're streaming on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Facebook. We have a Coronavirus Yorkshire Business Support Group on Facebook. Please join us there. You'll see future live Q&As in there, and also lots and lots of support and networking for businesses. So, Phil, you Mr. Online Bingo, you've been called. You're now a retired Mr. Online Bingo. You're now a business sounding board. What even is that? We're going to discuss what that even means. So how's just going back a bit here? How's COVID been for you? So you sold out a couple of years ago.
That's right. Yeah.
And so has this hit you in a similar way to businesses as a whole, or what's it been like for you?
Well, as I haven't got a sort of what you call a full-time day job, it hasn't really affected me. I do some major investing. I do some voluntary mentoring. All of that. Well, the voluntary mentoring stopped, but the angel investing is kept online. But generally, and I know people have had a difficult time through it, but it's been okay for me because, fortunately, not running a business on a day-to-day basis hasn't caused any problems. The biggest problem was having the mother-in-law here for 7 weeks to shield her.
Wow. Wow, and I'm sure you did an amazing job.
You better ask her.
At the same time, I'm guessing that also in the role that you now have, which is the soundboarding for businesses, I'm guessing that now has been a time where there's been a bigger demand, a bigger need for that sort of board level advice. Is that also what you found?
Yeah, I think what the last 3 or 4 months has allowed people to do, I suppose you could call it as a positive, is to actually have the time to step back, think, review what their business is, what their business is doing, what they need to be doing. And I think during particularly at the peak, it was a case of, right, okay, what do we do this week? What do we do next week? And I think now people are going, right, okay, what do we need to do for the next 3 months, the next 6 months, as lockdown eases and affects different businesses in different ways. Those that have done a huge pivot may well be thinking, well, okay, do we stick where we pivoted, or do we go back to what we were originally doing, or those sort of things? And then other people who've managed to hang on in there is that, right, okay, how do we exist for another 3 months? How do we exist for another 6 months? What does the next 3 months look like? How do we get to 2022 still doing what we're doing? These are all questions I think people are having to ask themselves, and they've had the time. Obviously, it's been forced on them, but they've had the time to do it as well.
You're as you just said, you're an angel investor. You are a soundboard for typically established businesses that are looking for board level support or help, or that soundboard that to have that sometimes difficult conversations or for validation, etc. But before we and you've also got this new business strategy 5-step plan, the FFS. That we're going to talk about, which there's a nice little analogy you've got for it, getting from Leeds to London. We're going to talk all about that. But before we get onto that, I just want to go back to back in time. I'm very interested in the whole online bingo story. You sold out. How did you even get into this? Correct me if I'm wrong. You were selling advertising for just 17. Is that right?
So, yeah, that's one of my career highlights. So I spent sort of 15 years in what I'd consider sort of proper employment, a mix of selling advertising space and then working in ad agencies. And yes, one of the highlights was selling advertising in Just 17 magazine. I also sold space in Yellow Pages and various other trade magazines. But I ended up William Hill, who were obviously headquartered at the time in Leeds, to launch their first ever online casino. This was back in 2000. While I was there, we came across online bingo as a product, and I actually did a board presentation to William Hill to recommend that they launch an online bingo site, which they declined at the time, although quite hilariously they then did 6 years later. But I left William Hill and sort of had this idea that actually this online bingo thing might work. So I put together a very, very basic pitch deck to raise finance to launch what would have been the UK's first ever online pay-to-play online bingo site. As a support for that, I created a very basic website about online bingo, and there was a very, very small market in the US at the time to get some demographics on the sort of people who played online bingo. Just basics, male, female, age, spend, how many sites they played at, that sort of thing. As backup data for my presentation, the old Dragon's Den thing, how well do you know your market and all that sort of thing. And so I took my very basic presentation around to various angel investment groups, both in Leeds and London, and failed abysmally. But nowadays this would be called a pivot, but I think at the time it was just luck. The existing bingo sites in the US started contacting me and saying, "Can I advertise on this research website?" So I said, "Yeah, of course, send me some money and I'll run some ads for you." And that was what became the business. So completely by luck, we ended up with what ended up being the simplest example, or simplest comparison is to call it the TripAdvisor of online bingo. So we listed every single bingo site in the UK, which at the peak there were over 400 of, and we sold advertising on there. And that grew from, a very, very basic website, a classic sort of kitchen table startup with just myself and my wife, to a multi-million-pound sale 18 years later to a PLC.
I mean, it's a fabulous story. In fact, I think you said there was no strategy here; it was all by accident.
Absolutely.
Does it feel like that?
It did, and it's interesting to look back. It was very much a case of making up as we went along because the market didn't exist. It was something very, very new. Because we never had to raise finance for it, we never had to do a business plan. And because we never had to do a business plan initially, we never particularly had a business plan. We had a sort of basic strategy, and we'd often, particularly in the early days, myself and my wife would just sit down and have a blue skies. We'd go up to some like Rudding or the village, on the ring road, sit down, get some coffee, get some marker pens and some paper, and just brain dump and chuck things around. And that became the strategy, which we sort of put in place. Some of it worked, some of it didn't work, and by hook or by crook, a bit of luck, some hard work, and a growing market. I mean, we were very, very lucky to be in a growth market at the right time. It worked.
Did you become a prolific bingo player?
This is the weird thing. Obviously online bingo is part of the whole gambling market. I'm not a gambler and I'm not a bingo player. However, what we did for every single recruit we ever took on as part of their sort of first week initiation, we always used to, first day, we took them for lunch on the first day, which was something I picked up from the ad agency I worked at. And during the first week, we took everybody to bingo, just to show them what bingo was like, because obviously people have lots and lots of preconceptions about bingo, and actually it really is a fun night out. So we'd recruit a web developer or a copywriter who obviously have no idea what bingo is. We go, right, we're all going out to bingo on Thursday night, whatever it might be. Oh, bloody hell, this is, and it's great, and it gets them to understand why bingo players are enthusiastic about bingo. So it's just, at the end of the day, it's you can look at it as simply product knowledge we were giving them, but it sort of got them into it. But no, I'm not a bingo player.
But yeah, but I mean, you just said, that product knowledge is so fundamental, so important, and it's great that you instinctively, whether it was from the previous ad agency or not, you instinctively thought, actually, these guys need to really get to understand it from day one. Just to remind people, you can comment and you can ask questions if you want to ask Phil a question. Someone on Facebook has already said that you are very helpful and a great sounding board. I don't know your name, but if you want to put your name in, if you're on Facebook, you've got to allow settings for me to see your name, but if you want to put your names in, please feel free to. So you've then taken all this knowledge, and what you're now doing is applying it to other businesses and helping other businesses do this. But I also just wanted to know about the sale, how that came about, and what was the what was the process there as well.
Okay. Well, actually, what a lot of people don't know is we tried to sell a few years previous as well. It got to the point where this isn't meant to sound arrogant, but I got a bit bored with the business, and business owners will understand that. You get to the point where you're keeping the plate spinning. It's everything's within reason, working okay, and it was just like we just continue doing what we're doing. So we put it for sale, and we had a plan A and a plan B, and the plan A was to sell, and plan B was to bring somebody in to run it for us if we didn't sell. And we got an offer on the table, which was okay, but not brilliant. And at the last minute, we decided, no, we're not going to do it. We got cold feet. So we stepped away, brought a commercial director in, which allowed me to take that step away, that release that boredom, but actually re-enthused me because I now had a mentee to help develop my business for me. And, over the years, we became the market leader. And as market leader, we often had people approaching us saying, do you want to sell? And the answer was always the same, which was, I don't particularly want to sell, but if you put enough money on the table, we'll sell. As I think most businesses would say, And what happened in the industry, we were part of the affiliate market, which is the sort of the websites that drive players to the bingo sites and the sports betting sites and the poker sites and the casino sites. And within the market, there were about half a dozen bigger aggregators, and they were buying up all sorts of businesses like ours. And we got a few tire kickers, and eventually somebody said, right, we're interested, and sort of put quite a big number in front of us. And we thought, oh, okay, that seems big enough. When we actually sat down with them, it was, yes, well, when we said that number, it wasn't actually that number. It was subject to this and subject to that and subject to the other. So we thought, oh, okay. But what I did was, because it's quite a small market, I then approached the other aggregators and said, look, off the record, we're not for sale, but if you were interested in acquiring us, so now might be a good time to talk. And one of those people came back to us, put together a package which was good enough to sell. And we were very close to signing with them. And a week before we were about to sign heads of terms with them, one of the other aggregators came back and said, right, yes, we're interested. So I said to him, look, without giving exact numbers, I said, look, this is approximately where we are. You need to really make a difference on the back of that to make us change horses. He went away and within 2 days came back and said, right, gave me a very nice number. So I had to go back to the first guy and say, look, I know we were going to sign on Monday. really sorry about this. We're going with somebody else. And the deal we did was with a non-UK based PLC, a company based in Israel, but a PLC listed in London. And I did the deal over the phone verbally with the CEO within a week. And then it took 4.5 months of lawyers before we signed the bits of paper. So the deal with the CEO was done at the top was very, very simple. I knew the guy we'd met before through the industry and all that sort of thing. But the lawyers were just, I mean, to to the credit of our lawyers, and I'll give them a thumbs up, it was Clarion in Leeds, who were very, very good. The sellers' lawyers were a bit of a pain in the arse.
Right.
And then we had a 3-month handover. The purchaser decided he didn't want any of our team at all, but we wanted a 3-month handover. We had some stage payments through that 3 months, and then 3 months after we signed, that was it. We're gone. And I had a 2-year non-compete, which has just finished, and that was it.
Wow. What a great story. And you talked about affiliate marketing there. I mean, one of the things that I think is important to get across here, and to be fair, for your new business of the business sounding board, you talk about how you're strong in online, digital, advertising and marketing sector. You have some, I got to know you very early on with regard to search engine optimization, Google penalties, all that sort of stuff many, many years ago. You've got some extremely strong skills around that online digital arena. Did that all come from, where did that come from? Because the advertising agency you're in, I guess, wasn't digital, was it? Or
yeah,
where did that come from?
I worked at a fantastic agency called Brahm, who then became Brass, who unfortunately went bust last year. So this must have been about 98, sort of late 98-ish, we started having clients coming to us saying, I want one of these newfangled websites that I've heard about. And obviously at that time, nobody knew, very, very few people knew anything about it. So Brahm pretty cleverly sort of put together what you would call a digital arm now, but was basically a couple of designers who were quite interested in the web, me as the account director and somebody else as strategic director, and started, I won't say selling, but started offering websites as part of the ad agency. So having that experience allowed me to get the job at William Hill to launch their online casino. And it just sort of grew from there, in the same way that you sort of pick things up as, if you go back to all your early days with the glasses and all that sort of stuff, that was all learning on the job, wasn't it? Oh, well, I tried this. Oh, that's interesting. That works. That doesn't work. And I built our first website in something called Microsoft Front Page, which the older people might recognize, but it was sort of
I remember
well ahead of simple things like Dreamweaver and WordPress.
Yeah.
And as the business developed, obviously my skills are very, very limited. I recruited a web developer, then eventually we recruited an SEO guy. And a lot of these skills were just picked up on the job. And as they got to a certain level of either importance or complexity, we recruited somebody to do it. So I have an understanding of SEO. I have an understanding of web development. I have an understanding of copywriting, but I'm not an SEO person. I'm not a copywriter. I'm not a web developer. But I had a team who did do that. And obviously, there's a learning from bringing an expert on board, because they have to explain what they're doing and how they do it. And sometimes you get to that point where you're recruiting somebody for a skill set that actually you're not sure how to evaluate whether they're very good or not. And sometimes you just got to sort of go with it.
Yeah. But the great thing is that you see the value in digital, in SEO, having a strong web developer, and there's not a lot of organizations that decide to actually employ in-house, and I think that can make a big difference. Just to interrupt for a second, Marshall Freeze says, Phil and I have had numerous chats about business challenges and ideas. Would highly recommend utilizing his knowledge and experience. That's nice to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall.
And yeah, what I was going to say was that the experience that you've got, whilst you're very strong in digital online marketing advertising, you've had 20 years, roughly 20 years running your own businesses. What you do now, I think, and I know you haven't formally made it clear that your areas of expertise with regard to sectors and industries, but but personally, I believe that, I hope you agree that I actually think you can help in many different industries and sectors, because having run your own business for that length of time, having the challenges that you've gone through, and the sale, surely you must have some really good board level experience throughout.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. One of the things, on one hand, obviously all businesses are different and all businesses face different types of challenges sector-wise and all that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, a business will come down to trying to increase your profit whilst trying to reduce/control your costs. And within that, there are, it's either going to be a marketing issue, a sales issue, an operations issue, a product issue, a financial issue, or staff. Yeah, they're the only things it will normally be. I don't think I've missed anything.
I think you covered the majority.
And most businesses, it's almost like a steam engine. Your marketing problem goes up, but your sales problem goes down, or a staff issue comes up, or finance. Obviously at the moment, cash flow is obviously a big thing for a lot of companies. So on one hand, somebody's run a business, like me for 20 years, can use that experience on any business. In certain instances, that's a benefit if I don't know the sector, because then it's quite easy to go, why'd you do that? And the answer is, oh, well, we always do it in this sector. Well, why? You can ask those sort of questions. Conversely, you sometimes maybe miss the nuances of the market and the sector and the issues. And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. I've worked with clients who found that me not being in their sector has been a help. And other clients who said, well, not being in a sector perhaps limits what help you can do. But what I try and do is position it quite strategic and high up.
Yeah, and I believe actually that the value that you can add from being outside a sector, because what I find working across multiple sectors and industries is that where we're in a sector, they're so in a tunnel and so focused that they don't think outside the box, and actually you can bring stuff from other sectors that they just haven't. And I think the value there outweighs the nuances or the little things that you're unaware of within the sector.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your FFS, your 5-step plan,
Okay.
and the simple strategy. You have an analogy, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, is going from Leeds to London on a train. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about this and how you currently help. And in fact, actually, what the hell is a business sounding board?
Okay, so there's two separate questions there, Johnny. Okay, let's answer the business sounding board. How do you define a business sounding board? Basically, everybody's heard the cliche that it's lonely at the top, particularly for SMEs. When you're running your own business, you're the boss. Maybe you've got a team of 3, 4, 5, a dozen people, and there are certain issues within a business that you can't discuss with your team. The best example is, I'm thinking of selling a business. You can't sit down with your team and discuss the pros and cons of doing that, because it'll absolutely scare them shitless. And often when you're running your own business, you've got loads of ideas running around, and you've got lots of what if, and is this a good idea? Is that a bad idea? And I think what a business sounding board does is it gives a business owner the opportunity to speak to somebody at the same level as them, with the same experience, and this is really important, in a trusted, safe, non-judgmental place, to be able to say, look, I'm thinking of doing this, or I'm thinking of doing that, or does this sound really stupid? And those sort of questions. And actually just as a business owner, having that space to be able to do that. And, sounding board is exactly what it is. It's just bouncing things backwards and forwards. So lots of what ifs and how does this sound? And often when I work with clients, I don't give them the answer. what happens is I ask them questions which brings the answers out of them that they already knew, that were either there at the back of their head, or they just needed somebody else to validate it and go, yeah, that's okay, you can do that. And that opportunity, I think, if you're a business owner and you're in that situation, where would you go to do that validation? You're not going to speak to your accountant, because they're very good at counting beans. You wouldn't speak to your if you've got a regular solicitor, you wouldn't speak to your solicitor. You might speak to a pal who's got a similar business, and often people do that. But then again, if it's something a bit sensitive, do you really want to do? I'm having a real problem with the business at the moment. I think we're going to go bust. What do I do? That's not something you're going to discuss with a pal. It might not even. I mean, often I used my wife as a business sounding board, and those of us who were fortunate enough to be married will know wives always have all the answers, and tell you how stupid all your brilliant ideas are and all that sort of
Absolutely.
stuff. That you've been thinking, this is the best idea I've ever had, and their wife goes, that's a load of rubbish. Why would you do that? Which may or may not be true, but you're better off bouncing that sort of thing off somebody else. Yeah. So really, what I'm trying to do is sort of clear that strategic fog from clients, or it might be something very, very specific. It might be one issue. It might be one project. So look, I've got this project. I'm thinking of doing it this way or that way, or this way or that way, or even the validation to actually say, look, I've been approached about a project and I want to turn it down. Is that okay to do that? You're not going to say that to your sales manager, because your sales manager goes, no, we'll take it. So that's sort of what a sounding board's trying to do.
And I found, speaking to you a couple of weeks ago, we had a 15-minute chat. You were sat next to the pool, I believe, in Spain at the time, and within 15 minutes, literally, I found that you managed to extract an answer from the back of my head, and you didn't tell me what to do, but out of that call, I felt I had accountability, and I actually went off and did something that I'd been putting off doing, and it was like, oh God, why did I not do this sooner? So if you can do that in 15 minutes, it's quite impressive, really. Let's talk about the business strategy, FFS. Okay. What does FFS stand for?
Okay, so for fuck's sake, this is what I call the Fraser 5-step, and it's not something I've invented. It's just an amalgam of lots of things I've read and things I've done in the past and all that sort of thing. So it's 5 very simple steps to put together a top-line business strategy, or it can be used for a specific project. But let's do it as a basic business strategy. So what I often do with clients is, the first question I ask them is, what does perfect look like in a year? Now that might sound like an odd question, but what it does is it clarifies the mind, because then it says, right, okay, it might be, we need £1 million of sales, or we need to increase our market share by 20%, or it might be, I want to sell a business, or it might be, we want to acquire another business. So that's where you start. And that, once you've determined what that is, that's your mission. So step 1 is, what do we want to do? Okay. So, and we'll use, because you liked it, we'll use the train analogy. So our mission is, we want to go to London. Okay. We've decided that. So your next step is, okay, we know what our perfect for next year is. What needs to be in place to make that happen, to deliver it? Okay. So from a business point of view, if we want to do £1 million of sales, it might be, well, to do that, we're going to need a new sales manager, or we're going to need to increase our product range, or we're going to need to put our prices up, or we might need a new CRM system, or we might need to do some PPC, or we might need to create an advertising campaign. And that is your top line strategy. So that's how you're actually going to deliver your mission. So our mission is, again, with the analogy, our mission is, we want to go to London. The strategy is, we'll go by train. Okay, we've discounted driving, we've discounted flying, we've discounted going by coach. So our strategy is we're going by train. Your next level is your tactics. So what do you need to do to make your strategy happen? So in a business case, if we said what needs to be in place to make it happen is a sales manager or an advertising campaign or whatever it might be, your tactics is the bits that need doing. So if we need a new sales manager, we're going to need to write an ad. We're going to need to spec out the job. We're going to, if it's a new ad agency or a new ad campaign, we need to find an ad agency, or we need to create the budget, or whatever it might be. So they're your tactics. They're how you deliver your strategy. So your tactics, we've decided we're going by train. Your actions, you start getting granular. So we need to check timetables. We need to book train tickets. We maybe need to book a taxi to get to the train station. We maybe need to find the address of the hotel we're staying at in London. We need to work out how long it takes to walk there. And then the final stage, the fifth stage, is the actual actions. When we get really, really granular. So in the business scenario, it's okay, if we're going back, you're recruiting a new sales manager, who's going to write the ad? Who's going to spec it out? Who's going to book the ad on Indeed? Who's going to do the interviews? Where the CV is going to go? That's, what's the deadline for it? Well, that's really, really simple, really, really granular stuff. And again, on our travel scenario, it's okay, Johnny, you're booking the train tickets. Sarah, she's booking the hotel. I'm going to work out what the budget is for us to do this trip. And then what you do is you flip the whole thing upside down. So you start with your granular actions. So Johnny, you're going to book the train. I'm going to set the budget, whatever. And if this has all been done properly, then because you've booked the train and I've decided what time we're going, what the budget is, we get on the train. We get on the train and we actually do go to London. We get there on time, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So actually, we've delivered our mission, and it's happened. From a business point of view, you wrote the job ad for the sales manager. The CVs went to you. You did the interviews. Therefore, we got the sales manager in place, who then sold more stuff, which means we actually ended up doing £1 million turnover. So it's very, very simple. It all starts with what does ideal want to look like, goes all the way down to the granular bits, flip it upside down, and it delivers. Now, there's a couple of things within that. There's obviously at the end of it, the end of the mission is you need to review it as you would with any project. So, did we get there on time? Did we do it on budget? And also, most importantly, how would we do it different next time? We'd improve it next time. So again, with your mission, you might be, okay, well, we did all those things, but we only hit 750 grand turnover rather than £1 million turnover, £1 million turnover as our target. Okay, what do we do differently? And we do this process again. And that is a very, very simple business plan or business strategy.
And that's why I love the analogy, because it's really simple. How you describe it is very, very simple. It takes the best bits of all the books and all the tools, and it gives you in essence, I guess, potentially even on a scrap of paper, a really very clear mission and objectives. So do you find that that people either haven't got clear missions, objectives in place in the first place? Where are the bits within this plan where people are failing the most? Where's the is it across the board? Is it that they just don't have the right strategy, the right objective in place even?
I think it's a number of things. I think in some instances it's lack of clarity. So actually going through this process just puts that clarity in place. A lot of businesses are doing okay. They're plodding along, ignoring COVID and everything else, and they're doing okay. But how do you improve that? And unless you actually set yourself a real target and a clear process for that to happen, it's not going to happen. And you could do this simply on a project. You could do this. This plan could be on a simple project. It might be, I don't know. We want to be at an exhibition in London in next January. To go, okay. So the mission is we want to have a stand at NEC or Excel or something like that, and you just go through it. So what needs to be in place? Well, we need a stand, and we need somebody to be there. We need to travel. But you've also got people who say, well, I want £1 million sales next year as my target. Fair enough. Well, how are you going to deliver that? You did 500 grand this year. Why would you do $1 million next year? Well, it'd be great if we could. Well, why? What justification? Unless you've been doubling sales year on year and it's naturally going to happen. Unless you put something in place to make it happen, it's just, well, it might happen, it might not happen.
What's your advice on how to come up with that mission in the first place, with that objective in the first place? Where do you get that?
Ask yourself the question. It's a very, very simple question. And what it does, it brilliantly clears people's minds. So I'll give you an example. This is more for sort of established businesses. So if you say, okay, what do you want to do in a year's time? I'll give you 3 options. Okay. Number 1 is sell the business. Number 2 is double sales. And number 3 is acquire a competitor. Okay. Now, most business owners will be able to pick one of those 3. But actually, by picking one of those 3, it immediately clarifies what they're going to do next. So if we're going to sell the business, there's lots of things you need to do. So you need to get your accounts in place, you need to get your reporting systems in place, you might need to cut a few costs here and there to make the business look a bit sexier and the profit go up and all those sorts of things. If you decided you want to increase sales or double sales, well, you do it differently. You'd say, right, okay, well, we need to invest some money in a new sales team or an ad campaign or a PPC campaign or some extra customer support staff. And if you said the third one was we're going to acquire a competitor, well, okay, if we're going to acquire a competitor, we probably just want to dampen down our expenditure because we might need a pot of money to purchase a company with. So just by answering that question of 3 options, you immediately set 3 completely different strategies. And by asking the question, I've sat down with people and done the same thing and said, do you want to sell? And they go, no, I don't want to sell. Well, okay, right, that's off the table. Whereas other people have come to me with a problem. I've got this problem, I've got this issue, I don't know how to solve it. And again, the question is, okay, well, what does ideally solving that problem look like? And then what are the options to put in place to solve that problem? Now, that might all sound very, very simple, but I think with a lot of business owners, it's just that process of being able to talk it through with somebody. And you often find this with people. Once they verbalize things, it makes it real. It solidifies it, it cements it, it makes it a real thing. We've all got lots of ideas running around in our head. Once you sit down with somebody face to face and you say, whatever you're going to say, it becomes real. And then you go, okay, that's real now. What are we going to do about it? So I think it's clarity of what the issue is, and then the clarity of what needs doing to make that happen. And the rest of it is pretty logical. It just needs going through, and you can do this, like you said, you can do this in the back of a piece of, back of a fag packet, or you can spend a whole day with your team strategizing about
it. It sounds too simple. No, I love it. I think it's really clever. Just to get to know Phil a tiny bit more, outside of work, you're a big Leeds United fan. You must be very happy for the last week and a half of progress they've made.
Unbelievable. This last week, 2 weeks has been just an emotional roller coaster. Tears, relief, celebration. Just 16 years of agony all disappeared with the Huddersfield Town goal. It's just amazing, absolutely amazing. Can't believe it.
And you play 5-a-side. You try and play twice a week, don't you? Is that right?
I do indeed. I do indeed. Try is probably the right word.
It was brilliant. You know, I mean, that's what another place we met. Actually, we played five-a-side together. I haven't played five-a-side for a number of years now, though. And
come back, Johnny.
Yeah.
Come
Well,
back.
I've started running. Actually, I'm doing the Couch to 5K. I'm in week 5, I think. Yeah,
Good. Well
maybe I
done.
will at some point. And I also was, you know, I was surprised at your music taste, punk. Which where did that
Absolutely.
come from? Where did that come from?
I'm a child of the 70s, so I was a teenager when punk happened, and it was the most exciting thing ever. So, you know, seeing the Sex Pistols on Top of the Pops, getting to see the Jam and the Queen's Hall, which obviously is no longer with us, the Undertones, the Clash, the Ruts,
Great
the Buzzcocks, Susan the Banshees, you know, just a fantastic time, and it's stuck with me ever since. And I still go watch the Undertones every year live as well. They're still going, and they're brilliant live.
They're a great band. The reason I've asked this is because you're an angel investor. I'm wondering what the dream investment would be. Is it an online bingo punk band? I'm not sure. What's the dream investment? Is there a dream investment? What are the things that you're looking for? What would make you excited? What would fit the passion? What's the sort of investment you're looking for?
I think with angel investment, people immediately think, oh, it's about making lots of money. And actually, that isn't. Well, obviously, that is one of the motivators, but it's not the key motivator. You know, I want to work with startups and founders who are keen to listen, want to learn. Obviously, the product or the idea has to be exciting, and I think very clearly initially be able to go, yeah, I get that. I can see the pain point that it is relieving. I think a lot is to do with the person as well, and it's almost a case of, you know, would I want to go for a beer with this person? Because you have to have that personal connection. You know, if it's an angel investment where it's like, here's 25 grand, here's 50 grand, go away and tell me how you've got on in a year's time. That's not what I want to do. You know, I do want to be involved. I want to pass something on. If it's something that is of interest to me, even better, but it doesn't have to be. And I think one of the least important things is the hockey stick projections that you see at the end of a deck, because you know it's not going to happen. Nobody's business does that. Obviously, conversely, if you said, you know, as with most businesses, it'll bob along for 5 years and then it might. That's not a brilliant presentation, but that's probably what's going to happen. So yeah, person who's willing to learn, an interesting product, an interesting person who is willing to listen and wants to listen, something that's easy to understand, and hopefully at the end of it make some money as well.
And is there typically anywhere they'd be on their journey with regard to length of time things have been going, or does it really just depend on the business?
I think it depends on the business. It also depends on the size of the raise they're looking for. You know, what I'm not really interested in is, you know, 50 grand for 0.5% or something. It's just not worth getting involved. It's like buying shares or something. That's not to say I'm part of a number of angel groups, and often we will put together syndicates of a number of people, which is
more of an investment, isn't it, than actually what you're wanting to do?
But it also, what you do get is you learn from other people. So we will often see a presentation and I'll look at it and go, wow, that's brilliant, and then somebody from that sector will go, no, that's absolutely rubbish. And conversely, you'll look at something and think, don't really get that, and then somebody from another sector will go, that's really, really clever. And then you've got a number of people who are all contributing, which helps the person who's looking for the investment, but also you learn from those people as well, and you can add a different skill or a different bit that they can add. You know, they might come from a retail background. I've never done retail, so I wouldn't be able to help on that sort of thing. But I've got a marketing and an online background, so I can help from that side of things.
Although I'd challenge you and say you could help from a retail point of view, because you know online so well, and you understand consumers as well. You know, with the whole bingo, it was all consumer. So I'd challenge you.
Okay. All right.
This has been really, really interesting. I absolutely love your for fuck's sake plan, and it's very simple, very clever. I can see how you can add huge value to businesses, and even I'm guessing even for businesses that are looking to sell, you've got some fabulous experience, which is really good to hear. It's been an absolute pleasure. Just to remind you, people that are watching, if you wanted to see more of these live Q&As, please join us over at the Facebook Coronavirus Yorkshire Business Support Group. Have we covered everything you wanted to cover? Anything that else you wanted to say? What I do want to ask you is if we wanted to speak to you, where would we find you? What do we look for online? Is there anything that you're wanting to plug?
I think probably the easiest place to find me is on LinkedIn. Just search Phil Fraser. You'll probably also find me by searching on the internet, but if you search Phil Fraser, you'll find either a reggae artist or a medieval costume reenactment company. If you add the word bingo, normally I'll turn up. And all I'd say is the actual business plan, I have a very simple PDF of it. So if anybody is interested in having a go at it, either I know you've got a copy, you can share it with them, or I can share it with them. My email address is just phil@philfraser.co.uk. And if anybody wants a chat or a soundboard, a quick 10-15 minutes, find out if I'm any use to you, we can have a chat, and then we'll take it from there if anybody's interested.
You're clearly very approachable, and you're saying the door's open. If you want to have a conversation that might be a bit more sensitive, or a bit more something that you can't just speak to a colleague about, or you're just looking for a bit of help or a bit of advice, give you a ring.
Happy. And with most businesses, it's often a case actually that what people think is the problem maybe isn't, and it just needs that it's just broadly just clearing strategic fog is what I can offer.
I like it. We'll add the PDF to the comments below. As we said, it's on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Look forward to seeing you at the next live Q&A. Phil Fraser, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciated it. And we'll see you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.